Hello everyone, it's Ginger here and welcome back to another video, and today I wanted to show you how I go about creating my thumbnail sketches, my colour studies, and then onto my actual paintings, and how I actually create the compositions for what I'm doing. So here you can see in front of me I've got a printout from my printer of a bouquet of flowers in a nice jar, and I've done some amendments to this, so I will show you the original image up here, and as you can see, first of all, it doesn't look like there's too much different other than the background, but as you look into it, you'll notice there's a few other things. So first of all, I've added another rose, so I believe it's this one here, and I've added this in to give another rose. If I did that, and you can see from the original image, it looks okay, but I wanted a lot more of the pink, so I added another rose. I also added another one of the carnations and made it bigger and put it here, just to kind of break up this kind of grouping here, just by adding another paler coloured flower. I also added 2 extra sprigs of foliage. When you look at the original picture, the bouquet that they created for the image is very up, and this is the lowest point, whereas I've now added 2 extra strands coming down on either side, just to give it a bit more rounded look and pull out a bit more. I've also cropped the image in. So what I mean by crop is basically I've cut out the image closer around the bouquet than is actually in the original picture, as you can see, allowing the foliage and some of the flowers to actually touch the edges of the space. That gives you a more expansive feeling for your paintings, because your head can imagine that there's stuff beyond the edge, which then opens up a whole world of possibilities. I like the vase it was in, so I've kept it, but obviously for painting wise, it's quite intricate with all these kind of indented diamond shapes. So we'll probably change it up and just make them diamond shapes rather than indented diamonds, and actually have to faff around with shadow in order to create the kind of shape and make it look like they're indented. Whilst it's lovely, the whole point of these floral paintings, these still lifes, are to simplify. I want to simplify it and make it a lot more fun. And going into all this beautiful detail on this vase is just not going to happen. So I've got a blue and a white pastel pencil here. And hopefully I'm going to change the colour balance so you can hopefully see the blue better. I did consider white, but as there's white flowers on here, that's not going to make much difference. I also considered a paint pen, and I can't find where I've put it because we've tidied everything away for viewings, so not helpful. As you notice, here is my sketchbook. We've painted both of these recently, as you'll have seen. Well, you won't have seen this one yet, but you will soon. And we've got 2 spaces left, so we'll be making use of that once we've marked this up. So what I'm going to do is mark up this image. This is the easiest step to go forward. You take your image and you're going to simplify. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw my vase. So the vase comes along, down and round. It's a really nice, easy shape. Obviously, I'm having to guess where it is where I can't see because of the foliage, but at the same time, we know that that's our vase. We know there's a rim here. This is where the diamond shapes stop. And then you've basically got these diamonds. Now, I'm probably going to make them smaller and spaced apart, so it will look something like that. So again, it's about using the image. I'm just drawing straight onto the print because it's just easier, and that will give me a really good idea of what I want to achieve without actually having to work too hard to get it. I think one of the scariest things is trying to simplify a composition, especially when it comes to bouquets of flowers, which can be seen as quite busy, you know. Unless you take half of it out, it is going to look quite busy. So you want to really drill down to what it is you want to keep and what you don't want to keep. I've messed some of these diamonds up, but it doesn't matter because this isn't even an initial sketch, so I'm not too worried. get the impression that the vase in this painting is going to be more complicated than the actual flowers. I'm going to be spending a lot more time on the vase than I'm going to on anything else. Isn't that going to be fun? Like that. So there's the vase. So that's what the vase will look like. Right? So now we're going to look at the flowers because that's the next biggest item. So we've got this carnation. Ignore the fact I've drawn a line through it. And we're just going to go around the outline of it. Squeaky pencil. And we're just going to go around the outline of the petals as well. It should just look like a kind of squiggly line mass. So there's one. Do another one. One here. One here. A bud here. So I'm going to do the bud like that. Another one here that's kind of opening, so it's not quite as big a bud. And we've got two over here, we've got another one here. And we've got two here. We've got a bud and a partial open one. So we'll draw them in. Like that. And then over here we've got another one. Squiggly lines, follow the petal shapes. Bud there, bud there. I've got a bud here. Oh, it's gone dark. I haven't put any of my big lights on, so I was relying on the sunlight and the sun's gone behind the cloud. Never rely on nature. Right, I think that's all the carnations, so that makes sense. Now we're going to do the roses. So we've got a rose here. Now, classic rose for me is we're doing the whole petal shapes going round. So you should see similarities to the paintings you've already seen me do. You're just following the petal shapes. Like that. Same on this one. Just follow the petal shapes. They're all kind of like crescent moons, really. Like that. And we've got another one up here. This one's a little bit more side on. Well, this one's a lot side on, but you know what I mean. Like that. Another one here. Right, so that's the 4 roses. So all making sense so far. Right, then we've got the daisies. Oh wait, hang on, I missed a carnation. Look, there's one hiding here. Knew there would be. Darn things, they disappear everywhere. Right, there's carnation. Daisies, fairly simple. Round and then outside edge. Round and outside edge. Now you could, if you wanted to cheat, and sometimes I do this when I'm being lazy, if I'm fairly happy with how dense the flowers are and the foliage is, then what I'll do is I will spread a thin layer of pan pastel on the back of the printer paper that I've printed onto, and then when I go over it with a pencil, it imprints your lines onto a page behind. So I would coat it with a thin layer of pan pastel on the other side, place it on top of my sketchbook page, and then as I mark out the flowers and the leaves that I want, it imprints that onto the page, and then when I take it away, I've already got my initial sketch. It's an easier way of doing it rather than doing it over again. Now, the reason I'm not doing that for this one is because there's a lot of big gaps here where I'm going to be putting in foliage, but nothing like this amount. So to get around that, I'm probably going to expand the size of the roses, and that will just fill in the gaps it will mean less foliage and more colour, which means, so basically I'm going to be over exaggerating some of the flowers. Right, back to these daisies. Just kind of looking at where they are. Some of them are kind of facing away, but I probably won't do that. I'll probably keep them all facing where I need to. Right, so that's all the daisies. Oh, missed one. Knew I would. That's all the daisies. Right. So now I'm going to look at foliage. There is a lot of, doesn't look like there's lots of different types of foliage in here. It looks all very samey. There's a couple of big leaves, but not many. So note there's a big leaf here, and there's another one here. But that seems to be the only big leaves I can find, unless I'm going blind, but I am blind, so I don't know on that one. But obviously I've got all of these. I don't know what they are. They're not eucalyptus, although they did look similar, but they're not. So some there. There's another sprig here. See, this is where it starts to look busy, so I'm just picking ones that I want. Being quite loose with the pencil. I don't really care if it's following the lines or not, or if it's even remotely correct. I am not fussed. This is a slightly different one. This has got pointy leaves. And that's a favourite type that I do a lot, so we know we can do that one. And that's the stem for that. Got another one of those here, which I want to keep in, so we'll get that in. There's the stalk. Always draw the line of the stalk in first, because it helps where you put your leaves afterwards. There's some grasses here. See them here? There's one. There's two. There's another one. There's another one. Another one of these round leaf stick things. You can tell I'm really good on my botanicals. Like, it's a leafy stick thing. And there's another one here coming up like that. Do I want to put any more in? Well, there's another one here. So yes, I do. Like that. I'm going to leave this massive tangle here and here. Not really interested in that. I just want to keep this safe. So you can see I've marked up all the things I want. I kind of got a better idea of what we're looking at. So now what I'm going to do is I will draw that out as a thumbnail. So let's bring the sketchbook in. Hopefully you guys can see it. I'm on a bit of a slope, but never mind. Right, pencil. So I know I've got the sketchbook dirty. First things first, there's our horizon line. And then we've got our jug. It kind of comes in little shoulders and then around like that. Right, so we've got a carnation right here, but I want to do the stick first, and I want to bring this out, so I'm going to bring it out a lot more than it currently is. Change the shape of these slightly to kind of more teardrop shape. We've got our carnation. Squiggly lines. Right, that's our carnation. And then we've got kind of a leaf here. And then we've got our rose. So again, I'm over exaggerating a lot of the flowers because I want to bring them as the focus. So there's our rose, there's our leaf, and we've got another rose here. This one will make smaller. Again, we've got another stick of these leaves here, like that. Fair enough. Right, then I've got another stick of leaves here. So do that. wonder if I bring this down a bit, you can see it a bit better. Or if I go sideways, what if I go sideways and put this here? Is that better? You guys can see that better, hopefully. Right. So we've got that there. We've got another 2 carnations here, a smaller one and a much bigger one, which we'll do here. And again, another twig. Yay, twig. We've also got the grasses here. I'm just conscious of the fact that you're not really going to see much of them, but we'll stick them in anyway. Right, now obviously I've made this bigger, so we've got these big bunch of daisies. So I'm going to add in another leaf, just the other one to go with the rose. And then here, I'm going to add these daisies. Like that. Then we've got a stick here, so we'll do that. And I've got another rose here. Like that. Here I've got another carnation there, but I don't really want, because we've already got one there and one there. But these are little carnation buds, so maybe we should do the bud. They've got kind of a funny shape, like that. And more twiggy leaves, because there's literally those going on, and we want to make sure we put them all in. Right. So our big group of daisies, and we've got another rose. Twig. Quite like them having grasses, so let's add some of the grasses in here. And then we've got carnation, which is also a bud, and another one here. And then we've got another twiggy thing, because that's what they're going to get called from now on. We're just going to loosely do some diamonds. We'll do something about up here. Maybe stick some of these daisies in actually. Like that. I like the fact I've got a gap here. I just like to break this up so that it's not looking too overcrowded. Right, okay, so there's our thumbnail. I think what I will do now is I'm going to grab my Himi gouache and bring that over, and we will paint this up and see what it looks like. Righty ho, I have the Himi gouache, whatever you want to call it. I'm pretty sure this is 48 ways. So gouache is really useful for doing colour studies because I've got a nice range in this that I can reuse whenever, and I just re-wet with a bit of water and it works. Rather than having to colour mix from either like a limited watercolour palette or using the pastels, which means I consistently have to blend, dust everywhere, and then I have to fix, otherwise it gets on every single page, whereas you don't have to worry about this. So First things first, I've got this gorgeous violet in this set, which is pretty much the exact same colour, which is great. I've got my water on my right hand side and my paint on my left, and I'm having to go over the top of the sketchbook. But the reason for that, I've never been asked about it before, is because of my sight impairment. I like to keep everything in the same place every time when I'm working, so that I don't have to think about it or worry about it. Oh, this is a lot darker than I thought it was going to be. I have got a lighter one though. Oops, sorry, not the camera. Let's take this off. And that's the other nice thing about gouache. Don't have to worry about it because I can take it off. Or just spread it out a wee bit. Oh, there we go. Problem solved. We'll try the lighter one. I just don't want it too dark because, you know, we want it lighter. Like that. That's a better colour. Let's keep with the lighter one. Visualise my entanglement of daisies that are going on in this top corner. But I don't think it's too much of an issue. It's amazing, really. One of the things I've noticed about being an artist is the amount of time you spend in prep versus the amount of time actually creating the art from that prep. So here you've seen, obviously, I've taken an image, I've spent some time photo editing it to get a composition I'm happy with, of which I've then changed again, but there's a purpose to that process. I've then printed it out, I've then drawn on it to mark out the actual simplified composition version of it. I've then sketched that again out into a thumbnail in my sketchbook, and now I am effectively colouring in my sketch in order to create my colour study. And the thing is with this practice is the more you do, the more that you'll see the actual piece change. It will develop into what you're looking for. I'm not here to basically recreate exactly from life the bouquet that was in the photo. I want to develop it into a nice artistic piece that will look good, will follow in the style that I'm working in, will create a new and interesting dynamic to visually what you're looking at. I mean, don't get me wrong, looking at the original photo, it's a very beautiful bouquet, that's fine. And as a bouquet of flowers, it's lovely. But as a painting, I don't think it would necessarily grip you in the same way as something that's had a chance to develop visually and then create some interest by contrast or bold colours or the way the composition has been changed, or even just the style of the painting, because it's so different. Right, I want something that's kind of more of a bottle green than a green. Or do I want it a green? Oh, hard choices. Do I want it a yellow green or do I want it a blue green? If I make it a blue green, it will really stand out against the yellow greens of the foliage. So we'll go with the blue green. Need a bit more water. I never worry about the gouache actually drying out. It makes no difference to me. Is that going to be dark enough is the question. I think it will be. Look at the colour contrast between the bottle green colour and the purple. Now the purple is a warm colour. So there's your first contrast, is you've got a cool cool green contrasting against the warm purple. So you've got a warm, cold contrast. You've then got colours that are very much opposites on the colour wheel. Although I thought orange was the opposite of purple. I think orange is the opposite of purple realistically. However, this green is a contrast colour to the purple. Probably just not as much of a contrast as an orange. That's why I love pairing orange with purple on a regular basis. They're just such a lovely combination. And me being a big fan of orange and a big fan of purple, will quite happily just put them together on a regular basis and upset everybody. Okay, so there's the jar. I haven't worked out what colour am I doing this base. They've got it kind of greeny brown colour. And I think realistically it's just a brown table that's reflecting the light from the vase and the colours from the plants, but I don't know. That is quite a difficult one, really. Don't really want something yellow, and I don't really want something brown based either. I could go for a grey. That is complicated. I wonder. Let's go for a moss green. Not something you would normally see as a base colour. However, with the power of technology, if I don't like it, I can take a quick snap of this colour study and I can, using a photo editing program, I can change the colour of just the background so I can get a better look. Same as I've added the lilac background to this printed image, and as you can see, it's not the case from the actual photo. I'm not 100% sure on the green. Don't know what you guys think. I'm not too sure about it, but well, I've got it here. I also want to do some of these flowers, some of these foliage. Like that. Just being mindful of where the flowers are. Stick there, another one there. Usually when I'm doing this, I would paint the flowers first just because it's easier to see where the foliage is once the flower is in, but as I'm already got the green wet and I'm already using it, oops, I've gone over the top of that carnation there. Then just got to be super conscious of where they are. that's the two that's the two carnation buds, and then behind them is one of these sticks of foliage. That is the daisies, and then another stick of foliage here. Like that. And there's another one here. Okay, I want to do leaves and grasses, slightly different green. There's a lot of green on that paintbrush. Bear in mind, all of these will have stalks. Do them. That's also got a stalk. Buds there and there. Grasses. We'll go over the grasses here with a different colour, and somehow I need to do these. Kind of lost track of them amongst all this, but that's fine. Some stalks in there, and then we've got those two there, that one there. Right, we will do the carnations next. I'm going to use a cream rather than a white. They need to be lighter, but I want the daisies to be the lightest. So there's no point having two things that are too close to the same colour, so you might as well kind of go a little further and just change that. So that's the carnations. And there's one there. Oh, and that's a blob. It's a blob. And there. And one there. Lovely. Now we're going to do the roses. Quite a dark pink. Kind of like a dark pinky red. So we'll go with that. I don't really have a lot of pinks in this set. I have got two, but nowhere. I've either got absolute dark or not. So I think if I spread it out enough, I can get it to be a lighter colour. I like to try and keep these to like a limited colour palette. I don't want loads. I don't need loads of flowers and loads of colours and lots of different things going on. I want to try and keep it as simple as possible. Right, so let's get a nice bright yellow. I want to do the middle of the daisies. There's no point in painting white on this. I can at least do the middle of the daisies, so they're a bit more obvious. Like that. And I want to do a little bit of pink edging on the carnations, because they are, I'm not going to say that they're not striped. I don't really know what you want to call them, but they've got like little pink bits on the edges. So I just want to make sure I get that in. Oh, that's still very wet, that one. As is that one and that one. There we go. Right. So there you have it. There is our edited picture that we've then marked up the composition we're pulling from it, and then the exaggerated version as drawn as a thumbnail and then as a colour study. So hopefully you guys found that useful, kind of getting an insight into how I put together these floral compositions before I actually do a main painting. And then obviously I will be painting this, so you will get a painting video of this one, and I am doing it on a 50 by 50 piece of Fabriano that has been primed with gesso which I have coloured a light blue just to give me a colour difference for the white paper so I can see what I'm doing. So 50 by 50 centimetres is pretty big. It's not as big as the 16 by 20 inch piece, just because obviously by 20 inches it's longer, but 50 by 50 actually makes it in square inches bigger. So that's what we're going to be working on next. Hopefully you guys have found this useful, and I will see you all soon.